Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are playing as the Wood Elves against the Lizardmen on the Northern Chaos Waste. So one of the things I've really wanted to try out really has been the new Regiments of Renown for the Wood Elves, as well as the changes to Orion, who did get a bonus for his large. Before he already had pretty monstrous melee attack, but now he's got a bonus for his large of 15, which puts his melee attack against large up to a grand total of 93 with Frenzy. So that makes Orion potentially an amazing large hunter. Now granted, he's got terrible melee defense, which is a big Debbie Downer at the moment, sort of bring him down and make him a worse duelist. But for hunting lords, I think he could be decent. He also does have that Cloak of Isha providing a ward save, so I figured maybe you can make him work. And so I figured against Lizardmen he could be pretty solid. So I did bring Orion. As you can see, he is coming in with Cloak of Isha, he is coming in with Hawk's Talon and Hounds of Orion. I think both of these are very good items against the Lizardmen, simply because you can drop them on Chameleon Skinks, and that way you can save ammo on, say, my Way Watchers, because I don't have a particularly monstrous shooting contingent here. Now for my front line, I'm trying once again something a little bit new. We do now have the Wardens of Sithrall, so these guys are basically an uber Eternal Guard. That's what I always say when I mention them. These guys are basically just an amazing version of Eternal Guard. I don't actually know where they get oh, never mind. I think they do just have built-in immunity to psychology, so that's really solid against dinos, of course. Better than Eternal Guard in that sense. They've got monstrous melee defense, great melee attack for 61, though I think it's 56 baseline. It's just being buffed and by the Baron Wraith. And they cause armor sundering. So alongside my War Dancers already dumpster Saurus Warriors, especially if you use their special ability here, the Shadow's Coil. These guys will trash Saurus Warriors in 1v1. So you throw on, it's about a 50-50 normally, and with the Shadow Coil they beat them very decisively. And so throw on Sundering, and I figured it could be really solid. We also do have a Branch Wraith, and the Branch Wraith is coming in with further armor debuffs, with the Withering, as well as Shield of Thorns to protect against missiles, potentially Melkos Miasma and Earthblood, as well as Call of the Woods and Smoke and Mirror. So I figured, a good complement of spells there to provide buffs. I figured if we can drop my opponent's armor a whole bunch, I can make him incredibly susceptible to the War Dancers, just annihilate a front line of Saurus Warriors and get rid of him very quickly. Because this is a traditionally pretty challenging matchup for the Lizardmen. Lizardmen don't have too many answers to Elven Archery, so they basically have to go infantry heavy or skirmisher heavy. They can't really afford to bring too many dinos, because those usually get sniped out. Alongside that, I do, of course, have some sort of screening contingent. I've got an Eternal Guard unit here. I've got the Regiment of Renown Loix Tricksters here. These guys are absolutely amazing. I actually do believe these guys are just amazing. They actually beat Chosen Halberds, Chosen with Halberds in a straight up fight. That is how powerful these guys are. And they've got Frenzy. Now they don't look that amazing on paper, but they've got Frenzy. They've got 44 melee attack, 64 melee defense, amazing mobility at 46, and they've actually got a bonus for Sludge of 23. So this melee attack is just ridiculous through the roof, and they can actually boost it further with Storm of Blades, which grants them another 26 melee attack, which puts them up to 93. That's higher than Slayers with great weapons than Giant Slayers. These guys are ludicrous. I think they're amazing. They've also got a little stock mechanic here with Loix Shroud. So I don't see them too often, though. I think it's because they're very expensive. On the periphery, we do have Way Watchers, as well as the Regiment of Renown, Hawkeyes of Drakira, which I think are a decent pick. They do have Discourage, which against dinos I don't think is that useful. Dinos have pretty good leadership, but they also do have Smoke Bomb, which can make them a little more easy to defend. Regardless, my opponent is chipping away at me, but I fire at him with my Way Watchers, and I'm actually trying to shift Orion over to get some spells casted at him. And you can see the Chameleon Skinks take quite a beating there. They don't really want to stick around through that. But the War Dancers lost about a fifth of their HP, so that was definitely not a great trade for me. Though my opponent did get whittled down a good bit too, and definitely this cost loss here is pretty comparable. Regardless, my opponent's trying to position his army, get a better angle on me, get sort of lined up parallel with my army, so he can get a nice little charge with his main line of Saurus Warriors, got even Saurus Spears in reserve. But I'm definitely not in the mood to give him that opportunity, and you can see I'm actually shuffling my troops around. I'm moving my Eternal Guard over here because I want their shields facing these Chameleon Skinks and absorbing their fire, and I'm moving my Loix Tricksters over here with Loix Shroud active to protect the flank against this mob of cavalry. My opponent does have 2 mobs of cavalry. If we look at this army, and you can see the fight's already breaking down. We're dropping our bombardments, Withering's gone down. You can see these guys are just getting monster mashed by the War Dancers. My opponent brought a front line of Saurus Warriors backed by 2 Saurus Spears, all shielded, of course, to soak up missile fire. You can see these guys over here drop to 0 armor. They're going to be getting slagged completely. I still on with the Revocation Crystal, so a good sort of front line that can trade okay, especially with the heals. 2 Cold One Spear Riders, Kroq, and Kroq is actually mounted on a cold one. Actually, I think a horned one, and a unit of horned ones. I think horned ones are a horrible mistake against Wood Elves, honestly, because if your opponent was, I make a mistake here of not sniping them now, but if your opponent is more on point and snipes them down, you're going to lose a bunch of HP, they're going to rampage, and you're going to lose them really easily. But regardless, Kroq over here is sitting nice and tight on his Horned One with Sacred Spawning, Deadly Onslaught, and Sacred Spawning, and Swiftness of Easel, my bad, I'm misdescribing there. And then you can see Chameleon King. So regardless, you can see bombardment's going down, the Star Spear's getting annihilated. Now, I do order my Way Watchers to open fire on the Bastillodon with the Vacation Crystal, chipping away at its HP incredibly quickly and dropping that leadership. You can see its leadership's already down a whole bunch and it's on the verge of routing. My opponent here is getting desperate because you can see just how fast, look at how fast these, and for how few casualties, these War Dancers annihilated this front line. It's actually a huge difference. 60th versus 30 armor is a huge difference for these guys. And you can see they just monster mashed these Star Spears. You can see I popped the Shadows Coil, which means that this attack from the Cold One Spear Riders is going to do almost nothing. Their charge bonus will help a little bit, but honestly, it's just not going to cut the mustard against Sword Dancers. And their armor's being debuffed by the Withering as they're entering that radius. You can see the Branch Wraith in there. And this entire front line, my opponent's entire front line is gone in the space of seconds. This fight, again, just a few seconds ago, and it's already over. Over here, where we didn't cast any spells, you can see the War Dancers with Shadow's Coil and a little bit of Earthblood still holding their own. Orion is, of course, in there providing his support. And we did get a sort of little bit of pressure. We managed to snap this front line, and you can see over here the Bastillodon getting slaughtered by the Loyal Tricksters, who popped Storm of Blades to get that extra melee attack, and they're just doing monstrous work here against this poor Bastillodon, who really just doesn't stand a chance. Unfortunately for me, though, my opponent does get into my backline. He's getting into the cookie jar a little bit with the Horn Ones, like I said, huge micro mistake there. And instead of turning free fire onto my Way Watchers, which is really what you have to do in this sort of situation, so they fire at the nearest cavalry as you're running away, I don't. So they're kind of not taking fire like they should be. Nonetheless, the Wardens of Citadel actually catch them because they've been hit by a smoke bomb. That is one of the amazing things about the Hawkeyes, is those smoke bombs. So they get smoked, and now they took a massive beating from the Wardens. Regardless, my opponent doing a pretty good job with his cavalry here, trying to run amok among my Hawkeyes. But unfortunately, like I said, these guys don't have great stats. Honestly, if I was playing as Lizardmen, I don't think Cold One Spear Riders are that good. Honestly, if you're just trying to oversaturate the back line, you might just be better off with normal Cold Ones. I guess they can't trade with Wild Riders, that might be why, but I don't know. Regardless, you can see over here, except for this small little fight here, my opponent has essentially lost the infantry fight horribly. A lot of the stars have actually completely shattered. All of them are completely routing, except this one unit. And the fight is going down incredibly quickly. You can see over here, the Cold One Spear Riders being pursued by the Loyal Tricksters. And Loyal Tricksters, with all their abilities, you can see speed up to 12, probably because of the cast recently. I cast a Earthblood, which gives me Smoke and Mirrors. It's up to 52 speed, which is almost on par with this heavy cav Cold Ones. And actually, if I had my ability available, my speed buff, I could actually keep up with these guys easily, which just shows how brutal these guys can be. And you can see with the Storm Blades, they're going to be tearing apart these poor Spear Riders incredibly quickly. They're just going to get dragged into the muck and slaughtered. In the meantime, my Way Watchers do start teeing off on the Cold Ones, who are trapped down here. War Dancers are, although not anti-large, and obviously these guys have decent armor and all that, will still chip through them just because they've got so much superiority in melee stats. Unfortunately, the Bastillodon here does recover, so I really need to shut it down. You can see my Wardens of Citadel chasing it. Pretty crappy engagement for them. They're not really meant for this, but in the meantime, I do manage to actually rampage the Horned Ones. And this is something I should have done ages ago. Would have saved me a whole lot of bellyache. But you can see they rampage off to fight the Wardens of Citadel. Once again, a terrible fight. The Wardens of Citadel will dumpster them. Kroq trying to push past. I'm not entirely sure what my opponent was thinking here. You can see him scattering with the Hawkeyes and actually throw Orion into the fray. You can see he just clocks Kroq there for about 500 HP. He's got monstrous weapon strength. See that, about 300 damage there. Kroq definitely not liking this spot, and Orion definitely putting it in this place. Orion just hits so hard, and Orion has a permanent frenzy. He's so monstrous, honestly, with those melee buffs. He hits like a truck, and you can see now the War Dancers diving in, Loyal Tricksters diving in. Loyal Tricksters are just beastly, and my opponent is just getting shredded here. You can see he does pop the Swiftness of Eatzel, but really at this point it's too little too late. His entire army is in tatters. He did manage to mop with the Eternal Guard here, between some Sarge Warriors and supporting fire from the Chameleon Kings. But really, at this point, there's just so little left. The Chameleon Kings are going to start running out of ammo eventually, and that's game as my opponent's army simply shatters. And so, I do think this is now one of the problems with this composition, in retrospect, hindsight, sort of 2020 thing, is that there isn't much shielding. So if my opponent had gone more heavily into Chameleon Kings, this could have gone a little worse. I think perhaps what might be smarter, I did have some chevrons, some money left over for chevrons, would be to drop a unit of War Dancers and replace them with, say, 2 more units of Eternal Guard with shields. Just drop the chevrons and a unit of War Dancers. I think that would be a much stronger position. Maybe even cut a spell from Orion if needed or something like that, but find some place to make a little bit of cuts and just get those buffs. As for the War Dancers, you can see just how devastating they are against dinos. Now, my opponent made a big mistake here, not bringing Caster of his own. That's something you always want. But a caster would not have changed the outcome of that frontline fight, I don't think. The War Dancers were just winning way too decisively. Maybe because of the Midnight Wind to drop their melee stats, but even then, I just don't see it. The War Dancers were just mowing through those Saurus Warriors. You can see just how low their kill counts were. And honestly, most of that was the War Dancers doing fighting. It wasn't like it was Orion carrying the day there, and the War Dancers sat around passively. The War Dancers were just that brutal. They just mowed through those Saurus Warriors like a side through leaves, and we're done. So in general, I'm pretty satisfied with this build. Low Extrictors, obviously not raking in a huge kill count, but they were busy killing the Bastillodon and then chasing after a handful of cold ones and then dealing with Kroq. They're honestly a very powerful unit. Never underestimate them. They're really strong. Wardens of Citadel also incredibly strong. An Uber Eternal Guard with Armor Sundering, you can't go wrong with that. Weight Watchers, of course, did their job. A huge mistake on my part not focusing out the Horned ones earlier and not using these guys. Not letting them free fire, because I had a huge amount of ammo left over at the end game that just had not been used and could have been used had I been more competent, really, with my usage. And Orion seemed to be pretty solid. I wanted to try out that anti-large, and I think it's definitely given him a little bit of a niche. He's pretty quick on his feet. He's got like over 50 speed, so if he can come to grips with the Lord, which he often can with some of the slower large lords, he can definitely lay the smackdown on him. Now, he still won't be able to outduel Lord. I actually did a test. He loses to Durthu in a straight-up fight. But, for example, so he's still not an ideal duelist. His low melee defense really betrays him. And good or not, the Cloak of Isha just doesn't provide that much sustainability. It kicks in when he's under 20%, which is already a very low line. And it's only 44% ward save, which sounds ridiculous. It's like, 44%. It's like, but that still means over half the damage is going through against the Lord who has no armor and minimal melee defense. That is a serious problem. Orion will still get annihilated by a lot of non-AP units in a brutal fashion, even when he does have the Cloak of Isha procced. So definitely I think it's, well, decent. It's not the end-all be-all, but I definitely like the buffs to him. I definitely like, just in general, what the new Regiments of Renown and the new sort of synergies you can get. As far as my opponent's build, if I had to have a criticism, I do think that he should have tried. And I don't think Horned ones are good. I mentioned this immediately. I think they're a pretty terrible pick. Here they worked out somewhat, not really, but they worked out better than they should have, simply because I was not on top of micro. And I saw them right off the bat. This was actually the first cavalry unit I saw. I saw them before I saw the Cold One Spear Riders. But I simply didn't micro correctly. I should have focused them out with the Weight Watchers immediately. So hindsight 2020 sort of thing, but definitely I don't think Horned ones are a good pick at all. If you're going to bring any cavalry against Wood Elves, either Cold One Spear Riders or just Cold One Riders, I think are a decent enough pick. The big problem with Cold Ones, normal Cold One Riders, is that I'm pretty sure they get dumpstered by Wild Riders pretty bad. I think Cold One Spear Riders will trade okay, so that might be an argument there to be made. But Cold One Spear Riders might just win. I'm not entirely sure, but Wild Riders surprisingly perform better than you would expect against a lot of heavily armored cav. But I'm definitely not entirely sure how that plays out. Regardless, I definitely think that if there was going to be any change here, just cut the Horned ones, get an extra unit of spear. I don't think you need a sort of spears really. Wood Elf Cav, while annoying, like, you're better off just, I don't know, maybe Saurus Spears. Honestly, they're not that much worse than Saurus Warriors, so just, I'd try to get more Chameleon Skinks in here. Try to get a caster. Maybe just cuts the Saurus Spears, bring some extra Chameleon Skinks in there, because Wood Elves have trouble with them. Bring some Cold One Spear Riders, you can force them to come to you instead of vice versa. And then your Saurus Warriors can trade okay. If your opponent goes heavy into War Dancers, you can cycle charge them with Cold One Spear Riders. Obviously, Kroq is pretty solid. As long as you have a caster, you can use things like Flock of Doom to melt the Wood Elves down, and so you can have some better options that way. So that's my criticism for my opponent here. Either way, great game to Gizmo there, and I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe below. If you have any comments, any criticisms, any questions about the game, anything like that, be sure to post them. Like I say, I try to answer as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.